Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello MJ trading friends, using a new mic. Haven't really tested it out much, so we'll try and get the levels right here. So let's look at CGC, WEED, CRON, APH, ACB, TLRY, OGI, TRST, and N. Whole bunch of names to look at here. We'll start at the weekly time frame and zoom into the shorter term time frames. So for CGC, we have an upper wick, and that's pretty much the case for most individual names, and that leads us to three scenarios, obviously. We're either going to see continuation, we're going to see a daily inside bar, or we're going to see a pullback. I would not be surprised to see daily inside bars, but with the volatility that we have in this space right now, as well as the steady stream of news that we do have coming out, we could very easily see one of the other two scenarios. So when I want to see which is more likely, I zoom into the daily time frame to get more details, and we can see that the bulls are still pretty much in control of where we stand right now, and we have pretty similar consolidation. We had the top day, a pullback with a lower wick, and then an equilibrium on the 4-hour time frame, which showed up as a tight range on the daily. And here we have the consolidation candlestick, the pullback with the lower wick, and the follow-through day. So pretty much these 3 days and these 3 days are very similar. And I'm looking for the same pattern. I'm looking for a 4-hour lower high to be set potentially on Monday, and for this range to tighten up into Tuesday or Wednesday. So let's look at what that looks like on the 4-hour time frame. Let's put our support and resistance lines in. And on the 4-hour time frame, again, this is what it looked like. We have some nice recent past to be looking at, and it's actually a little bit tighter right now. So if the bulls do not show up first thing on Monday and we pull back, we're going to look for the bulls to test 47.85. I would assume that they can hold that unless, again, there's some kind of bad news, which hard to imagine bad news comparative to good news in this current situation. The headline risk certainly favors the bulls at this point. But we're going to be looking for the bulls to hold that level. If not, if we see continuation, I would watch for a lower high in the $54, $55 range. Resistance right now is $52.74 and $57.05. So those are the two resistance levels that have been set. And again, support, we have $48.80 and $47.85. So two supports and two resistances to be watching. And if we break the supports, it'll be the first clear consolidation that we've seen on the daily time frame in terms of, significant consolidation since this bull run. You can see the 4-hour time frame hasn't really seen a clear bear break since this move started all the way back down in the $25 range. So it would be notable if we were to come down and break $47.85. Otherwise, it's just the bulls maintaining the support and maintaining the trend and looking back up towards that all-time high. So we should get a lot more information on Monday, but again, I would not be surprised to see this range on the 4-hour time frame continue to tighten on Monday, not giving us that clear direction just yet, and then on Tuesday or Wednesday, we would get it. So WED is the same thing. The only thing different is the levels. So let's go right to the 4-hour time frame and pick those out. Support, resistance, and another resistance level. Not really as clear a second support, and that's because we don't have the pre-market data that CGC does. I have the extended hours on to CGC. We have more candlesticks, more information. I do take the candlesticks with no volume behind them because they are during extended hours. I take them with a grain of salt, and levels that happen during regular trading hours are always more important to me, but it is worth noting because the pattern shapes can stand out a little bit better with that more information and those more detailed. So 63.03 is the clear level that if we broke it, it would be a trend change on the 4-hour time frame for the first time since the gap up. And in terms of resistance, 69.31 and 74.45. And of course, psychological resistance levels, 70, 71, within that range to be watching as well. This looks more like, without the extended hours, this looks more like the potential of the equilibrium. If we see a bullish start on Monday, we will look for a lower high around 70, 71, and then we would pull back and look for a higher low and a tightening range into Tuesday or Wednesday, like I'm saying. So CRON, upper wick of profit taking on the weekly. We look for the daily details. Higher lows are very clear here on the daily. So our most recent one was 1091. Same scenario. We have so much space until the high of 1339 that the more likely scenario is a lower high. That being said, the more likely scenario back here was a lower high as well, and we did not see that in part due to some pumping that we had on CNBC, and that led to significant after hours and pre-market action that allowed for that gap up. And actually, let's look for the extended hours here as well. But here on the daily chart, A clear break would be 1091, and we would look for a lower high under 1339 if the bulls do show up. So here's the extended hours. We have 2 support and 2 resistance levels in the near term. The resistance, 1244 before we're looking up to the high of 1420. And support is 1120 down to 1091. And that's what I like about extended hours sometimes, because the daily chart right now has our top up at 1339. And if we were to break that level, we would say, all right, well, we don't have no clear resistance nearby. But if you look at the extended hours, we do. We hit that extended hour high up at 1421. So that resistance level does come in handy in times where we don't have any other levels nearby. So similar to CGC with the extended hours and a little bit more of a pullback after hours, it looks like, on Friday. And a break with some more clarity is coming early next week. APH, it's a very solid weekly close. We don't have as much of an upper wick. Didn't get the follow through that the bulls were looking for on this swing play with the very strong close and the abnormal volume and the abnormal bull run up. And I ended up taking a small loss, was traveling yesterday, and had some orders set on APHQF. So didn't get too terrible of fills, 1610 and 1585. And due to the cushion of the profit that I gained at the end of the day from getting into those positions to swing them, the little loss wasn't too bad. But it's just constant reminders for me, stick to my game plan, and my game plan goes a whole lot better when I'm day trading than swing trading recently. Definitely have had some solid swing trading wins, but overall, I'm trying to stick to day trading unless it's a very clear scenario. And looking back at this scenario, I would do it the same. I would not hold off from that very strong close, because we'd seen plenty of strong closes and then higher opens 2 days previously. 4-hour time frame, inside bars, tightening range is currently forming. So I go to the hourly, wanting more details. I look at the tightening equilibrium, very clear here already. So we had a double top, 2146, 2144, very clear signal for the bears to take profit, or I should say for the bulls to take profit and for the bears to jump in here. And we're looking down at support of 1986. Break 1986, it will be a clear double top and a loss of the hourly higher low pattern. And that will be the first clear loss of the hourly higher low pattern on this bull move since we found this low down at 1334. So again, it would be notable for some more prolonged daily consolidation if we do lose that support level. But still a lot of hype and interest in APH. We have not really seen MJ, the ETF, adding APH yet, and I actually haven't checked the data from Friday, but as of Thursday, MJ had not begun to add it yet, and people are anticipating that's potentially coming because APH did divest their U.S. interests and now opens it up to a whole lot more interest, and we're going to watch to see if we get that buying power. ACB, continued weakness. The weekly chart is pulling back already, but the weekly chart's just fine. It's just compared to its peers where it's not just fine. So the weekly chart, declining bear volume, we're going to look for a weekly higher low to form here, and then a bull break would be a break of these lower highs. So the very clear resistance right now is 938, and if any point in the next few weeks we break 938, that's a very notable shift in momentum and a change in the weekly trend that's going to put the bulls back on track. Again, it's just compared to everybody else that it's a laggard and much weaker. But if you just give me this chart on its own, I would look at this weekly chart and say, all right, now let's look for that higher low and let's see if the bulls can change this trend. If we see increasing bear volume on the daily chart and more of a pullback into the low $7 range, that would change things and make it more likely that an equilibrium would show up on that weekly chart rather than the potential of just looking for some continuation. But we're clearly in consolidation mode on the daily chart. The next support we're looking at is down here at 766. And that's after 794, the low of Friday. And for the bulls to turn things around, I need to see an hourly trend change. And they're trying to do that. We had a break of the lower highs at the end of the day Friday. Now we need a higher low and then a bull break of 833. If we do that, we're going to say, all right, our daily higher low has been established. The bulls are shifting momentum back in their favor. We did have news that came out on Friday that was a clear shift in momentum. And let's look at that on the shorter term time frames. News about, again, oil licenses, I believe. I've been traveling. I'm currently in Iceland, so not tapped into the news of the names that I'm not currently playing, and I'm playing these names on NASDAQ and NYSE, CRON, and CGC much more than the names that are not. So double check me on all the news-related events, but it was a big turnaround right here. This is when the news came out, and we had the clear increasing bull volume on the 5-minute time frame, and then a nice equilibrium and a bull break. And again, another example of APH. Look how beautiful this equilibrium is during the middle of the day. And this is a signal that you can day trade on. We have our high, low of consolidation, lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low, clear bull break with huge follow through. So the bull break was 20.57 and we made it all the way up to 20.44. So that's essentially an 87 cents gain, and that is roughly 4.5% in less than an hour. So obviously that's a huge trading opportunity, and you don't have to trade in the first 15 minutes when things are crazy. If you're day trading, you can wait for these patterns to develop, these clear, tight patterns, and then play their breaks. And that alone would be plenty to make your day worthwhile on that one trade if you were just patiently waiting for it. So a lot of people, feel like they have to be acting in the first 15 minutes when things are crazy, and it's a lot harder, and that's not the case. So ACB, we need that hourly trend change for the bulls to shift momentum to try and see it bounce on the daily after 3 days of consolidation. Clearly, it's weaker than everybody else that we just looked at. TLRY, huge upper wick of profit taking on the weekly. So we look at the daily chart, and the bulls are still looking to form a higher low here because the last higher low was down at 55.55. So that's not in play at this point, and it's declining volume. So at this point, we are going to look for a higher low, and I would anticipate that if this trend is going to change and if the bears are going to take over TLRY, we're going to see a higher low, a lower high, and then a loss of the daily higher low pattern. So I do think there's another solid bounce coming this week once we're done consolidation, and there's no indication that we're done consolidation at this point. We need a trend change. The bulls broke some lower highs on the hourly, but they didn't get the higher low and then confirmation follow through. So I'm looking at key resistance of 84.70 and 88.68, and support is down at 76.87 and 72.50. If we break 72.50, that means bulls take a step back and say that we have to patiently wait a bit longer for this hourly trend change. Otherwise, if the bulls can get a break of 84.70, that's almost a little late in the sense that if we did get that move, I would still be looking for a lower high comparative to the all-time high, and I'd be looking around the upper $89 range or so. So there would be a little bit of follow through. But just keep in mind that if we went straight to a bull break from here, we might be a little bit extended. To go from 77 straight to a break of 87 or 84, that's already a 10% move. So whenever I see a bull break, I want to make sure the bulls are not too exhausted heading up towards that resistance before the break is even made, because those are situations where we don't get a lot of follow through when the bulls are already exhausted. I visualize it like they're actual animals sometimes, and if you have to run that much distance to break resistance, you're going to be tired and need a drink of water. OGI on the daily time frame, big upper wick. Let's look at the weekly. So upper wick there as well. Solid day Friday, but obviously a lot of profit taking heading into the weekend. And this looks like a volume climax. So it looks like our temporary top is in for now. And ideal scenario for the bulls would be a daily inside bar on Monday, meaning they can hold 673 and trade within this range and see a bit of an equilibrium form. Key daily support is 636 to keep the bulls in full control. And on the hourly chart, we can see at this point, there's no major red flags. It's low volume consolidation after a huge initial hourly candlestick to start the morning. And the bulls would love to be able to hold 682 here. If we can't, that's a little bit more of a red flag and would put us back in this range. You can see we traded in this range for a while before that clear explosion. And now we're going to head back. And if we break 682, I would be looking down at this previous resistance to now act as some support right around the 670 range. And in terms of resistance, we set an hourly lower high at 713 to be watching. So healthy consolidation, we look for a trend change to indicate that our daily higher low has formed. We look for an hourly trend change to indicate that. And right now we have no sign of it. We're down at the low of consolidation. So we have to be watching for the potential of further consolidation on Monday. TRST ran up with the news of potential uplisting. And then the company came out Friday and said, we don't know if we're going to do that. So chill out. And that led to a bunch of profit taking. So again, potential volume climax candlestick. We're looking at this range here. Probably going to hold this range for a few days. We've got 906 support and 1170 resistance. So obviously that's a huge amount of, 25% more than that, 25-30% of range to be trading in. So we look at the 4-hour chart. I would expect a higher low before 906, and if we drop down to the low $9 range, that's a potential bottom fishing play where you make an entry, you exit if 9 psychological does break. But again, you want it to get closer to that level, the closer the better, to mean there's less risk. So if we do keep pulling back on Monday, that's a key level to be watching. Hourly resistance is 1056 and support is 1004. I'm finding that I get the most clarity on these Canadian MJ charts currently by looking at the hourly chart in combination, pretty much just looking at the 4-hour and then the hourly for the more details. And that's when things get clear, because we can easily say if TRST doesn't break 1056 on Monday, we're clearly going to still be in consolidation mode. Bulls have to break these hourly lower highs on all these names to indicate they're ready to show back up and continue pushing to the upside. And had a big pullback day, daily time frame. Again, very high volume, gap and trap scenario. We gapped up and saw a ton of profit taking, and it happened very quickly when the sell-off happened. Looking at the 5-minute time frame, we just straight up dumped from 315 to 276, and that is well over a 10% dump with only in 25 minutes. So again, check for news on this one. I was on planes all day yesterday, so I'm unaware if this was triggered by a news event. But as far as the hourly chart goes, we can be looking for an hourly higher low because anything above 263 is a higher low. So let's see if the bulls can hold that level. And actually 262, there's multiple lows here, 262, 2, 4, 3. So I put my loss below 260 psychological and look to make an entry, again, a bottom fishing entry, unless there is significant bad news, which I would need to double check before this trade game plan. But that's a clear base of support that the bulls can look to try and get a bounce off of. And then again, we would look for a lower high, probably in the upper $2 range, but could be a nice little trade in there if that support can hold. So that's where we stand heading into Monday. Pretty much looking for tightening ranges to continue. And as long as we see that tightening ranges are more likely, that means I scale back my aggressiveness in trading. The most significant opportunity and follow through that we get is when we get breaks of tightening ranges. And while we're within those tightening ranges seeing consolidation, we don't really have a ton of clarity. There can be some choppy action, and we definitely want to avoid that and not overtrade and give back profits while we are in that scenario. So I am always one to default and just say, well, I'll just wait for this tightening range to break and then play that. And that keeps me from over trading. So I appreciate you watching. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Again, don't know when these videos are going to be coming out. Currently traveling around, and I think I got internet at most places, but we'll see. Have a good rest of your weekend. We'll see you soon.